And then when I got to SF State, I did my senior thesis on Asian American identity and resistance in hip hop. So basically forming a framework of how to discuss Asian American identity around the framework of hip hop as a vehicle for social justice.
That was hip hop blogger Joy Ng. I'm Jeff, and this is Storied San Francisco. Every week on this podcast, you'll hear from writers, photographers, bartenders, and San Franciscans from all walks of life, telling stories, sharing personal histories, and trying to put into words what makes this city so special. Welcome to episode 32, part 2. In part 1, Joy talked about some of the schools she went to in different neighborhoods, her time at SF State, and changing her college major. In this podcast, Joy discusses various aspects of her critical work involving hip-hop, including using the art form as a vehicle for social justice and resistance. Here's Joy.
It started when I was a kid. So when I was way younger in high school, I met a crew of b-boys in my high school who used to practice in the hallways. I thought it was the coolest thing. They taught me, how to do graffiti and draw still. So through that and like dance, I also tried to be a girl for like a few months, and it's really hard, so I kind of gave up. But I've always admired what they do and I always supported them at like events and stuff like that. So over the years, I was just a really enthusiastic spectator of the b-boy world. And then that also led to listening to more and more hip-hop as well. So I listened to like Talib Kweli and Common and Queen Latifah, Missy Elliott, especially Missy Elliott growing up. And then like groups like TLC. So being heavily inspired by them during the 90s and 2000s, and, being around like the b-boy crews. It was just something that was really memorable to me because they were also another, safe space. It was like an activity to do and partake in. And then when I got to SF State, I did my senior thesis on Asian American identity and resistance in hip hop. So basically forming a framework of how to discuss Asian American identity around the framework of hip hop as a vehicle for social justice, and how Asian Americans fit within that, and how our artists, much like Ruby Ibarra, can use music as a way to spread messages about community, social justice, and bring awareness to different things that are happening.
Do you see some hip hop artists here actively taking part in a resistance, and like in as many words, like being?
Let me take a stab at that. That's a very loaded question. Just to backtrack on that, I think my particular interest in hip hop and social justice kind of goes back to the birthplace of hip hop and the conditions that gave birth to hip hop, which were, housing crises, violence, gang violence in the Bronx. And when, we put together a side-by-side timeline of, those conditions that gave way to hip-hop and conditions on the West Coast at the same time that we're fighting for the I Hotel on the West Coast in the 70s was the same time that the Bronx was burning. And those were kind of like the beginnings of addressing issues in the Bronx of, housing and violence and all those things, and how groups use music and dance to come together and to stop the violence and to bring peace to communities. So I think that's where my focus is, on the crux of, where struggle kind of gives way to a bigger than all of us kind of thing, like a unified, a more of a unified way of seeing things,
building community, and something community, that people can relate to.
Yeah, definitely. I've always understood hip-hop as building something out of nothing. Like, even when you have nothing, you're able to create something out of it, a song, dance, whatever. And I think that's why it's always been so powerful to me. So
also with sampling too being such a big part of it, that's kind of taking what's already there.
Yeah, definitely.
And adding,
recreating
layers.
Yes, definitely. To jump to the next part of your question, which is
which I don't even remember now.
Artists that I cover or that I work with in San Francisco, I have a very particular niche of wanting to, or examining artists that bring to the table a certain conversation about their ethnicity or about Asian American experiences, and also have some kind of connection to the community. So my research in particular really focuses on the impact that an Asian American artist can have on community, and that is basically a mix of all these particular ingredients. And so for artists in San Francisco who are doing this work, there are plenty. There's OGs like Equipto who are very loud and outspoken about police brutality and protecting Black and brown youth. And there are also other artists who do it through dance and fundraising.
Name drop for me. And for the list.
There's so many. But
that's fine. I got plenty of time.
Yeah, I would love to send you a list after this.
That's cool.
I'd love to. But yeah, there are a lot of artists, local and also all across the West Coast who share similar experiences. So I think that also having shared experiences in the Asian American experience, whether that's your ethnic experience or experience with police brutality or other those things like that, as Asian Americans, as people of color, I think there's a certain baseline to our similarities, and I think that's what hits the hardest when it comes to hip hop, and that's where we find our connection, is that there is a certain shared language of struggle and creating something out of nothing. So yeah, that's kind of like where I put my magnifying glass in my research, to see how like artists like Ruby Ibarra, like how does her music impact young Filipino American women, and how do they connect to it, and how do they see their community differently after attending a show or listening to her music. And that's the kind of impact that I want to examine. I
would think like just so much empowerment. When I've seen Ruby, like I get chills, I get goosebumps, because I'm like thinking about the younger. I look around and like there's kids as like little as 5 maybe years old, and you can just tell that they're making that connection. Yeah,
and it's beautiful because like we see those impacts not only in music but also in education. So there are things like Rock the School Bells Conference with Nate Novato and Skyline College that have been doing this for over a decade, and they put together this annual conference with educators and youth from all over the Bay Area, and they talk about how hip hop can be used as a tool in the classroom to teach. So there's a lot to be learned from in hip hop. And from our own communities. So when we put those things together, it's like, what can we make of it? How do we create more out of what we already have?
What are you excited about next? Like what's coming up that you're stoked for? And it could be any, it could be like next week or in the summer or whatever.
Upcoming next.
Shows, records, events.
So we've been talking about Ruby Ibarra a lot. We gush about her a lot. And she has shared that she's dropping a new album this year. So I'm excited for that.
Do you know when? Offhand? I could look it up, but do you know when that's going to drop?
No, I have no idea. Hopefully she'll
announce
it soon.
Okay, she doesn't know. Okay.
Hopefully she'll announce it soon. But I'm always excited to see what she'll do next. And let's see. I'm working on 2 essays I've been working on for the last year. Actually, I've been taking a break here and there, but I'm working on 2 essays. The first of which is B-boys and gentrification in San Francisco, which is exploring how B-boys and B-girls are how are they attached to space, and how do they thrive despite of space being taken away. So in terms of gentrification, closing down certain dance spaces in San Francisco, how does the B-boy community react to that? How do they continue to thrive in San Francisco? And the second essay is a culminating look at Ruby Ibarra's kind of trajectory after she dropped Circa 91, and the impact that she's had on the community so far. So directly taking from that magnifying glass that I like to examine on those impacts, that will be kind of the kind of essay that will be coming out about Ruby's trajectory.
Before we wrap, anything obvious that I missed, or anything you want to talk about?
I mean, thank you for having me. It's great to it's great to be able to share ideas and stuff. I think as a writer, sometimes I don't feel like I'm regarded as a hip hop artist, but as a documentarian, as a writer, I feel it's important to write down important moments in our history, hip hop history, Asian American history, in our community. So this is a great way to, share that knowledge and get folks involved. But yeah, if people want to work with me, I'm more than open to it. So yeah, thank you for having me.
That was Joy Ng. Join us next week when we'll hear from artist William Rhodes. Music for the podcast is by Otis McDonald. Film photography is by Michelle Kilfeather. Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to learn about some of the stuff we do besides the podcast. Find the 80-plus episodes on our website, storiedsf.com, which is also where you can go to pledge your support for what we do. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please rate and review the show for us. Send comments or suggestions to storiedsf@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.